Is there a trigger that you, like an image that you have? Like
yeah, I sort of do my own little sort of, little ritual,
Yeah.
It puts
Very
you into
cool.
dopey mode.
Dopey mode.
That's it.
Excellent.
Charlie knows about that mode.
Yeah, dopey. Yeah, clueless mode.
All right, Charlie.
Well.
I've started.
Okay. Sorry, I guess this is very kind of casual, but I'd like to talk about what we have been talking about. What you think the crop circles are trying to show us, trying to remind us of. Could you talk about that?
Okay, I've got to think of this one. So really talking about what the crop circles are showing us. They're showing us a beauty that is associated with the land, a beauty which is associated in an art form, but also a beauty which is associated with spiritual awareness. It's something that unlocks within us magical images and thoughts and awakens us in some way.
Do you, can you talk a little bit about, when we talked about harmonics, how these individual sites are keyed to certain notes and frequencies, and how those...
So you're talking about old ancient sites, or?
Yeah, because again, what we've discovered is crop circles always reference these ancient sites.
Yeah.
And the harmonics.
So you want me to start with saying about crop circles, or the fact that it's notable that ancient sites carry within them a harmonic?
Yeah, the ancient sites carry within them a harmonic. That's really good stuff.
Okay.
It ties into what we're going about.
So ancient sites carry within them a harmonic. They all have a sound, a music, a note, a tune, which is resonating. And really Avebury, Stonehenge, all those places were sound chambers, places of music, sound, vibration. And the crop circles brings us into that also, because they have a resonance, a sound.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about your history with crop circles, like how you first were kind of pushed into this in a way, back in the day, as you discussed moving here to Marlborough?
Yeah, I want to say this differently because I've said it so many times. I want to put I use the same old words in every interview, and I would like to put something slightly different on it,
Okay.
So I've got to sort of think of not doing my pat sort of thing.
Right.
So I could say intuitively I felt drawn to return to this area where I lived as a child, and to walk in the fields, connect into nature, and felt impressions that something was going to happen, something was going to occur, that there were changes happening in the land. And later what manifest were the formations came in the places that I'd walked and visited and felt something was going to happen there.
Okay. What was I going to say? I'm sorry. Let me think. Yeah, sorry. Can you talk to us about how, and we've talked about this as well, how you feel we're being reminded of something by the circles leading us to the stone sites and these power points?
Well, I think actually the sites came first, and then the circles are reminding us. So
Okay.
is it best to do it that way?
Yeah, I mean, this is your opinion, not mine. Don't let me lead you. Yeah.
No, but I just want to make it that it's okay with you and that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So, okay. What's interesting is the crop circles tend to occur by ancient sites, places that were meeting places, places of teaching that served the community. And these sites were utilised by people who had an understanding of using their minds, their consciousness and their awareness to the benefit of the community. I've totally lost my train of thought. Oh dear, I've gone into dopey mode.
No worries. We want you in dopey mode.
So your question really was, what was the benefit? Did you say the benefit or?
Maybe why were they built?
Yeah, why are they there? I mean,
Okay.
yeah. 'Cause, yeah.
Well, the sacred sites were constructed really to serve the community and to help to develop the consciousness of people, to attune themselves to the land, to the water, the things that would activate the mind. And these were used really for healing, but also for predictions, but also to what we would call perhaps far view, so that an adept would be able to sit and know that the game would be passing a certain place, and so they would go and hunt because that's where the game would be. They would also know of perhaps visitors coming from the west, so they were prepared for them when they arrived. So it was really to serve the community. And so these people were able also to look into the future. And looking into the future, I feel that they had an understanding of the way that humanity would develop. And I feel the sacred sites were left as an insurance policy that someday the people would return and they would connect into the land and the ancient sites and remember their intuitiveness and their connection. And in that way they would raise their consciousness. In that way they would be responding and responsible to the environment. Now the crop circles are now bringing us back. They're bringing us back to the land. They're bringing us back to remember, to reconnect, to respond and to awaken in a way that can only be of benefit to whoever makes their links with them.
Can you talk a little bit about, we talked about this, that you find the same, let's call it spiritual technology, from Egypt to Avebury, almost like the same mind laid it down, and where that might have come from?
The similarity between sacred sites is quite amazing when you start to research and look into the mindset of the people who created these places, the way they worked, their understanding, their development of their abilities are actually worldwide. You can look into the history and the archaeology all over the world and you'll see that there are similarities there. There must be, in a way, a collective consciousness. It's, you hear of the butterfly syndrome, a butterfly beats its wings and affects somebody in a distance. There's something about us being a collective consciousness. And certainly through periods of history, there seems to be times when humanity have taken another step forward and another step forward. Things have changed simultaneously. Now, my understanding is that maybe that's something greater than we are. Maybe we are connected into a universal knowledge, information, or the universal mind in some way. We are part of the universal mind, which is creating and destroying and, making our reality.
So in that sense, just to follow on with that, you talked about this, we are co-creating these circles subconsciously. Almost.
Yeah. I certainly feel in some way there's some need within us for the beauty, the magic again, the awakening, and I feel that we as human beings have huge abilities. They talk about animals having super senses. We have super senses. We've just dulled them. We're not using them in the way that we could. And certainly I feel that we are helping to manifest the visions that we see, the formations, whether they come through whatever means they come through, however they are created, we are co-creating that reality. There's some need in us for the magic to occur again.
And can you mention the kind of ancestral? You remember you talked about the bones.
Yeah.
And how we're now discovering through the DNA stores information how the ancestors might have used bones. Let's say.
Yeah.
In these sacred sites.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a matter of putting it
I know,
in the
so
right way.
sorry.
No. That's fine. It's my yeah. Okay.
Sorry,
Wait for the phone. It'll stop in a minute. It's on the answer machine.
Bloody growling. So
I can still hear something. I'm not sure if it's like a voice or something.
Apart from traffic, you might get a hum.
I think it's someone leaving you.
Someone's leaving a message. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I can't hear what they're saying, but you can hear like the
You can hear it in the background
yeah.
now. Oh, yeah, I can hear it too. They've been a blooming long message. I hate it when they do that.
Think you're good, Alex.
Cool. Okay.
okay. So it was bones.
Bones. Well, about these bones
Yes.
that abound.
Yeah,
Abounding bones. The ancient people believed that we came from the stars, we came from the universe. And they believed that all that you had done in your lifetime, all your knowledge and information, was actually stored in your bones. And so when someone important died, they would take their bones and put them in their chambers of the dead, so that people could tune into those bones and get information and knowledge that person had accrued, where they'd been, what they'd done. You know, we sometimes might call it psychometry, which is the art of picking up the vibration information from things. But the ancient people believed that those ancestors would pass on knowledge to them. Now, nowadays we call it DNA, and people can test where someone's been and various things, which was just natural to the ancients to know that this is what was possible.
Why have we lost that way of looking at the world?
We've lost the way of looking at the world in, I should say, an intuitive way, because we haven't needed to do it. We don't need to find water. We don't need to find our food. If you talk to Aboriginal people, they know how to find water, they know how to find food. They're using their intuition. It's only because we haven't needed to that we've blunted it. So we don't link into that part of ourselves, which is really quite miraculous.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. Can we talk about the archaeoastronomy, heaven's mirror, as above, so below, and how these sites reflect that?
Yeah, okay. The ancient people really wanted to mirror the universe on the earth. And certainly in this area, they constructed sites that mirror the constellations. And so, for example, the pole star in ancient times was in the constellation of Draco, the dragon. And so they laid on the landscape sites that would mirror the constellation of Draco on the land. And so that when you stood in the place of the dragon, then you connected in with the black dragon and the stars and the knowledge of the dragon. And in the same way with different sites. And so around this area and other places in the world, the constellations are mirrored on the landscape.
Fascinating stuff. Let's talk about Silbury and how that fits.
The Hill of the Shining Beings.
Oh, that's good, yeah. Okay. Haven't heard that one.
Haven't you?
No.
No, that was what was given to me. It was the hill. It was given to me that Silbury Hill was the Hill of the Shining Beings. And actually, when you look at Silbury, sometimes you can see an aura around it. It does shimmer and shine in certain lights. And if you can think that that was actually constructed to be white, and it would have reflected the sunlight and would have reflected the moonlight, it would have been quite amazing. But also, my feeling is that it's very attuned to connecting to the heaven and the earth. And it's in the position in Celtic understandings of the time of the year, which is Lammas. And Lammas is a celebration of the sacred marriage of heaven and earth coming together. And when Silbury Hill was excavated, they found that the central mound had ants in the turf, which had wings, and it's only this time of year, which is August, Lammas, harvest time, that the ants have wings. And their understanding was that which was of the earth could then fly. And so Silbury Hill celebrates the link of heaven and earth, the coming together of those two aspects.
Can you talk to us a little bit, if my stomach will be silent here, about how the crop circle phenomenon has changed in your view, both the designs, but also the people, and how divisive it's become?
That's a can of worms.
Yeah, I can get you in trouble. Okay, let's stick to the designs, shall we?
Oh no. Well, I'll just say a bit, and then you can,
Okay.
Certainly over years, the crop circle phenomenon has developed, changed. In the early times, it was quite a joyous happening where people would be astonished and amazed and meet in the circles. And there was a lot of interesting phenomena that would occur. And the bending of the crops, the lay of the crops, and there was a real sort of camaraderie. People would go into the circles and scratch their heads and wonder what it was all about, and there was a real aspect of mystery and excitement. And I think the thing is with humanity, we tend to get bored after a while, and things sort of lose their magic. And but certainly what has happened is I think the designs now are much more artistic, much more technical, and people spend a lot of time working out the geometry of them and forget to think about just enjoying what is there to see. And I always do say that the crop circle phenomena always brings out the best or the worst in people. Whatever is in anybody, it highlights things. But that's interesting because sometimes you have to have a mirror to see the truth. And I think the crop circle phenomena mirrors whatever is in somebody. So there tends to be a certain amount of competition because that's humanity, but a lot of sharing. So there's still something very positive that happens because people walk on the land. And that's the whole thing about it, is because once you start to walk on the land, you reconnect into a source of power and a source of energy and a way of remembering. And sometimes people say, well, I haven't done this since I was a child. And they really live their childhood and the sort of magical memories of childhood. And it brings back a joy into people's lives. So that's my feeling about it. But it's certainly changed over the years. Certainly the formations have changed. But things do change. Nothing stays the same. And that's fine.
Can I jump in, Charlie?
Yeah, sure.
Isabelle, I loved it when you talked about the subconscious, like you don't have to actually recognize what a symbol means.
Yeah.
My question would be, do you think people need to understand consciously what they're looking at?
No. Yeah. Okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I don't feel that people really need to understand consciously what they're looking at. The magic of symbolism is that it affects you subconsciously and it unlocks something within you. So the crop circle phenomena, you can see an image, you can accept it and reject it, whatever you like, that's absolutely fine, your choice. But subtly, the vision goes inside. There's something about beauty affecting humanity. It feeds your soul. So at a very subtle level, something in you will be shifted positively by a beautiful image. And that's my feeling, is subconsciously we're all being changed by that. And that means also, because we're a collective consciousness, that wave of opening and knowing and beauty and receptibility is becoming a phenomena worldwide.
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's right. This knowledge, and I'm saying this is a huge categorization, very generic, but in a sense, this is the most prevalent and on the surface it's been since I can remember. That's not much, so much.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? It's like you had, it was underground for a long time.
Yeah,
it was Arcadia, the hidden river.
Yeah.
And now it's almost like it's a spring, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
coming out.
yeah, yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, right. I mean, certainly when I was young, to be interested in spiritual things in the sense of psychic phenomena and that sort of thing was very unacceptable. You would be considered really weird to have some of the conversations which are the norm now. People are seeking. We've become seekers. We're opening up to various things now that we hadn't before. And I think that's part of the necessary changing in humanity's understanding. Certainly the ancient people, I think, understood the way that we were going to go. And I think that we need to open up. We need to be responsible and respond in order to save the world. And I think that is a deeply spiritual thing that's happening. That awareness is spreading and opening. And I think it's very necessary for future change.
What if we continue to if the majority of us continue to ignore this?
I'm not really bothered if the majority of people continue to ignore it. It doesn't matter, because one little light lights a whole room. And I think that one little light creates miracles. If there's just a few people who are, by their example and by their being in the world, then it affects everybody. And I know there are people that do that, people in the media who have with them a certain ability to change people and to bring hope. And that's the secret. I think the crop circle formations are something to do with a message of hope. And so it's fine, the message will get out eventually. And, I think the most important thing is for us to really care for each other. And that only comes from a place of being without fear.
That's good. Can we talk a little more about the place of fear and how crop circles might be trying to push us out of there?
Yeah. I think the thing that really causes a lot of problems with humanity is the fact that we have too much fear around. And fear is such a negative thing that, it just creates all sorts of problems. But really fear stems from being disconnected, from being unsafe or feeling unsafe in some way. And the way to feel safe is to be in an environment where you feel that you are connected and at peace. And the way that we, as animals, human beings, can reconnect is by connecting into our environment, into that which gives us life and sustenance and gives us power. So if we can reconnect into the environment and into the land, then that makes us release our fear and brings us into a space of being at peace and well-being. So the phenomena really brings people to walk on the land, to reconnect, to sit a while, to stop, to feel, to open their senses, be it the rain, the intermittent sun, and the wind, but it actually gets that moment of awe. And when you come to that moment of just being at one with yourself and one with the environment, then it's the most magical and empowering experience. It's not forgotten by people, and it changes them. That's the magic, I think, of the formations. And the other thing is, often people say to me, well, it's okay for you, you live in an area where all these formations are happening, things are, happening, and the sacred sites. What's in it for me? The thing is, though, that what is interesting is that those images are for everybody in the world. You don't have to be in them. You just have to see them, and they work on you.
Oftentimes the circles, they reference solar or lunar activity. Our ancestors worshipped the sun and the moon, but they had good reason. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. the ancestors worshipped the sun and the moon because they understood that without the sun and the moon, there would be no life. They wouldn't exist. A lot of the temples were associated with the moon originally, and the moon was associated with fertility. As we know, that the cycles of the moon were considered very important. And they believed that if the moon didn't exist, there would be no life on this planet. Now it's been recently scientifically proved that without the moon there would be no life on this planet. The sun, they also understood, gave light, gave life. Without the sun there would be no crops and there would be no food. And so to worship the sun was to really honour that which gives them life. They also believed that if you didn't honour that which gave you life, it would stop doing it. And so they honoured everything. They honoured the earth, they honoured the trees, they honoured the flowers, and they honoured each other, and they honoured the animals. And so the sacred sites are aligned to the movements of the sun and the moon to put people in contact with that which they honour, that which they loved, that which gave them life. And so, for example, a lot of the places would predict eclipses of the moon, because if the moon died, there would be no life. And so you can imagine that the priest would know this. They would have calculated when the cycles of the moon were going to be. And it was wonderful theatre. So you can imagine them just, suddenly the moon disappears and, I'm going to do this big ceremony and bring the moon back. And you'd be really important then. And so that was a good way of being important and powerful. But the sites were aligned to all these things, the way of harnessing the energy of the sun and the moon.
Getting back to kind of while we're on the topic of planets, the Greeks used to call them the solar system, the seven they knew about, at the acousmata, the harmonic ones. Can you talk about perhaps how we're in the middle of a giant symphonic orchestra?
Yeah,
here?
we are. And it's also interesting because the seven planets that were visible, we have the 7 days of the week. And also sacred geometry, the movement of the planets are reflected in sacred geometry. But also that each planet had its sound and its note and its vibration, which are also reflected in some of the stone circles. So some of the stone circles would be associated with Venus or Jupiter, and they would be holding what they believed were the qualities of that planet. And so the sound of the planets would be, again, reflected in the sacred sites and the sounds of them. So you could go to a stone and tone a certain note that would connect you into Mars, and you'd do that before you went off into battle. And that's the way they would look at it. It was, again, that reflected what was above and what links below become one. It's all, everything is all.
That's good. That's really good. Hutch, do you have any?
Yeah, I have. I find it interesting that people think that there's a progress that happens like linearly, and I'm starting to believe that there's a technology that existed once upon a time that isn't like an iPod or a DVD player. But can you talk about maybe this? My question would be, did the ancients have technology?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
We got an answering machine going on. So
Yeah.
that's
Are they leaving a message?
yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So
But asking a question.
could Avebury, Stonehenge, the Barrows, could we be looking at a spiritual technology, a functional, practical way? We're really kind of going back and filling in because now we're talking. So could we be looking at Avebury and Stonehenge and other sites, spiritual technology?
Okay.
Oh, wait, I don't.
What are they saying?
I have no idea.
Right, there's
I
listing,
just hear syllables.
listing numbers right now.
Give me your telephone number.
Yeah, but now there's talking.
Oh yeah, we want
But
to
it-
make an appointment.
The answering machine was making a number, was saying.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, it's 147 one afterwards.
Sounds
I'll
like
be
it's
it.
done now.
Okay. So could these sites be a spiritual technology that's now lost or being rediscovered? To be less pessimistic. Sorry.
It's an interesting concept to perhaps look at how maybe these ancient sites had some technical way of producing phenomena to be utilised in some way. Certainly when you experience being in a long barrow when they're aligned to an equinoctial sunrise and the whole place is illuminated far brighter than any lights could do it, you experience a little bit of that understanding. But certainly they had an understanding of forms of electricity and to create light. I think also they had... Here we go.
Sounds so good too.
Yeah. Do you think we could come?
Yeah.
Could we pick up from electricity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever line the telephone cut.
Whatever it was I was saying.
You were saying you think
Brilliant.
they had knowledge of electricity, among other things. So
Certainly I feel that they had an understanding of electricity. They utilised that. They also could create holographic graphic images that would be quite amazing to people. They certainly had an understanding of using sound and resonance to move stone, and I think that's definitely a way of helping to create the standing stones in their upright position. So much, I think, is things that we don't think that we can do, but we actually can do. Certainly we have the power in our voices to move things and to shift things, and so those things have been lost, I feel. Certainly Stonehenge and Avebury were sound chambers, you know, each stone resonating with a different note. And we know now that sound can heal, sound can have different properties that can really expand our consciousness and our mind. And so these sound chambers were also very important.
have you heard the theory that this is not quite a question yet? The Great Pyramid, you had the smaller pyramids because they build up the resonance. So one pyramid, they get that vibrating. It would cause the next largest one to start to vibrate. Have you heard any of that?
No, I don't know about that, because really there were lots and lots of pyramids, weren't there? I mean, with the Great Pyramid, you've got the Queen's pyramids beside it, but they don't really have the same resonance that the Great Pyramid has.
Yeah.
And so I don't know about that. I can't really answer that one.
Isabelle, why do crop circles happen predominantly? I guess they say 90% happen around Wiltshire.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. So many of the crop circles occur in Wiltshire, and it's not by chance. The land does have a certain power. It was chosen by the ancient people to be a centre of spiritual teaching and awareness. And also, so many of the sites are still here. The land's not been built on. It's been farmed, it's been tended, but it's not been built on. There's also something to do with the amount of water here, because water conducts electricity, but it also helps mind and consciousness and so many other properties. But this was a place of ancient schools of learning. And so to have, again, a new form of awakening, a new form of learning that links us into the old knowledge is important. And so I think that's why they're here. It's rebuilding the school.
Brilliant.
That's great.
Brilliant.
Just trying to think of.
You
Well,
got
there we go. Now I've got we're fine.
brought here using levitation, sound to levitate the
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah, I don't. Because think about it, if you're
Oh
dragging
yeah,
a
absolutely.
40-ton stone, you can excavate those groove lines. They're still
Well,
gonna
it's
be
it's
there.
it's for example, when people talk about ley lines, ley lines are really Earth's energy lines, simple magnetic lines that have been empowered with consciousness. So you would sing and dance and clap and make sound, which would sort of lock in an extra vibration. Now, when you think of people, soldiers marching, they sing. They march, they sing, and it gives them energy. So when you're moving a stone, if you move a stone on a magnetic line that's empowered, and you sing and resonate with it, you're actually levitating or helping to levitate or making that lighter. You're giving it an energy. And so they had a definite pathway that brought the stones from Avebury to Stonehenge. And they would sound. They would use the voice. They would use magnetism and their understanding of the manipulation of energy to move the stones and also to erect them.
Sorry, go
That
ahead.
was great. Now, anything about the tour in Glastonbury that?
Oh yeah.
Anything about the tour?
Yeah,
I actually
that
grew
tied
up in
into
Glastonbury,
these-
so yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, the tour is kind of
A symbol of male.
is it? Because on
The
map
tour,
it-
well, the interesting thing is about in Glastonbury, one of the old understandings was that Stonehenge is associated with the sun and male, Avebury is associated with the moon and female, and Glastonbury is the child. And in Glastonbury you have the Tor, which is male, and the water that comes from the bottom of the Tor is white. And then at the base of the Tor you have the Chalice Well, where the water is red, which is the female. So it's a place of fertility and an understanding of both male and female properties. So it was a place that was particularly important. I mean, it really was, because ancient man understood about fertility. And so Glastonbury was a place to visit, a place where, that deep magic was also manifest. So the Tor also was walked in a certain way. And if you walk in a certain way, and it's like when you walk in a labyrinth, you change, and your brainwaves changed, and you're shifted and altered in some way. So you can imagine climbing that Tor and walking that Tor. And then when you get to the top, you are totally open and receptive. And you're receptive to all sorts of things, both spiritual and universal and cosmic and earthwise. It's a way of really opening and triggering that raising of consciousness. And then to go to Chalice Well, which is a place of healing, of the mother, of the goddess, of reconnecting into the earth and the power of the earth to come into you and to give you health and strength and healing and vigour. So Glastonbury is a place of those dual things.
The Arthurian legend encodes some pretty important things. The dragon and where to find it. Can you talk about that? How it relates not only to Glastonbury, to this whole part of the country, the south.
It's quite interesting that so many cultures actually do have a connection with dragons. For example, Swindon, which is the nearest town, their symbol is the wyvern, which is a dragon. And also in Marlborough, the town motto is "Where now lies the bones of wise Merlin." And in the Arthurian legends, there is a connecting with the dragon. And the dragon is the ancient wisdom. It symbolises the ancient wisdom and knowledge that's gone into the land. But also the dragon has the ability to fly and to soar and connect into the sky and the universe. And so the stories of the dragon and connecting into the dragon are really important. And so therefore, when you think of the constellation of Draco, the dragon, being mirrored on the landscape here, and dragon goes from Avebury right the way across the land to Stonehenge. And so those were considered pathways of knowledge, of linking into ancient wisdom, but also because the planet developed from the sky and from the universe, To connect into dragon links you into the universal knowledge, because the planet has travelled from the stars, and it reconnects you with the stars again. So Merlin talks about, or links with, the dragon using the sword. The patron saint of this area is St. Michael. But St. Michael doesn't use the sword to slay the dragon. Michael uses the sword to connect to the dragon, to link into the earth energy and the knowledge of the dragon. And so that when Arthur finds Excalibur, it's in stone. It's in the earth. But also, the ancient people believed that certain stones were symbols of the universe. So, for example, West Cunnick Long Barrow, you have the sarsen stones, or the sandstone, which has a lot of crystals. But you also have limestone, gathered very carefully from 60 miles away. And that's a place of heaven and earth coming together. Excalibur would have been in a granite or a sandstone, a very, very hard stone, which also represents the power of the universe. So to draw the sword, you link in to the magic of all things.
Quantum physics is kind of catching up with you these days, isn't it? And starting to say some things that you and many others in the legacy through the centuries have been saying for a long time. Can you talk about that?
Yes, certainly in ancient times, the people who were the seers or the psychics were also the scientists. The two went together because it's all knowledge. Nowadays, people are being able to develop machines or technology to prove what the psychics or the seers have always known. Because the truth is a simple truth. You can't change it, it is. So some people know the truth and some people have to prove it. But the truth is still the truth.
Wow, that was great.
What was I going to say? Everything you say is so interesting that you throw me off the next
Sorry.
question.
Sorry. I'll try and be less interesting. I have a question, Charlie. This is sort of, I know you're talking about reconnecting with the earth and the purpose of crop circles and stone circles to reconnect us. Can we go a step further and say, what really go further than that and say, what are these circles trying to teach us? Are they? What can we take from them? Where are we headed if we ignore them?
I think we choose to ignore spiritual messages that have been given to us at our peril. We have a choice. We have a choice to awaken or to stay as we are. We have a choice to grab mystery and magic and move forward, or we can choose to stay where we are. And I think the message of the formations is really a message to say, grab what you can, move forward, open your eyes, believe what you see, trust yourself and what you feel and what you know, and be empowered. And so if you reject that, then you're missing out on a lot. Your life becomes dull instead of wonderful.
That's really good. Yeah.
That's sweet.
Does anyone have any questions, guys? From the
I'll stop this for now.
that's good.
Alright, so let's talk about West Kent Long Barrow.
Okay.
To Charlie.
Charlie, okay. With regard to West Kennet Long Barrow, certainly it was created to be a chamber or the house of the dead. But the whole idea sorry, I better start again.
Yeah, no worries.
West Kennet Long Barrow was created really to be a house of the dead. It was really a place where people could go to call on the ancestors to intercede. What was also important was that it was also a place of harnessing the light, harnessing the sun, harnessing the creative force, aligned to the equinoxes. So at certain times of the year, the sun would shine in to the chamber, into the bones of the ancestors. And this would awaken the ancestors. And you could speak to them, and you could call on them to help you. And then through them, the light would pass through their bones into the elongated chamber, into the land. Then at a dark time of year or difficult time, you would stand at the entrance and do your ceremony and call on the light which has been captured within the land and within this site. It would come through and speak through the ancestors and help you. So it was really to harness the rays of the sun, rays of the light, to allow that chamber to resonate in a way that those with spiritual ears could hear the voices of the ancestors. They also used to have finger bones hollowed out that they used to use as whistles and summon the spirits from that. Also, the end of Westconnex Longbow is aligned to Silbury Hill and Windmill Hill. There's a reason why it's aligned to that. Windmill Hill is associated with the festival of Samhain, which is the festival of the dead. And so you would have your ceremony up on the hill, again celebrating what we call Halloween, aligned to the chamber of the dead. So it had to be a certain length, had to be a certain shape. It's also an isosceles triangle. That was also important. The inner chamber was isosceles triangle. And so it was also a way of sounding and speaking and calling to the spirits. So the sound was important.
You reminded me of sarsen stones, like you said, heavy in quartz. Quartz we know has memory. You can
That's right.
program it.
And that's the whole idea. That's why Westconnex Longbarrow has got sarsen stones or Saracen stones, called Saracen stones because it meant ungodly. But it's actually sandstone that has that resonance. And you'll see very simply that the chalk walls, and those chalk walls representing the earth and water.
Sorry, can we stop? Can we just say that line again because there's a siren?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, repose. That was the question. It was about sandstones.
Yeah, the quartz. The quartz is a memory programmable
Yeah.
kind of database.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quartz has a memory which is programmable. So how do you get the memory out of quartz? Quite often you might use a hammer or sound, dislodge it in some way. And so sound would have been important to record or recall that which has been recorded in there. And also they had an understanding of, and I've said that anyway, about the DNA, so I don't need to say that again.
You can if you want.
No, I don't need to.
Okay.
You don't need to.
Okay. We've covered
It's
a
really
lot.
quite good to go in there and go in each, get one person to be in each one of the chambers.
Mm-hmm. My question was about that. Is that
Yeah.
someone told me that that chamber is much longer than, and they put that back wall.
No.
Is,
That was meant to be there.
that's the extent of it.
That is the extent of the chamber. There's
Really?
no further chamber. It's not meant to be.
Okay, I take your word on that. But someone had told me that it extends further.
No, it doesn't.
They sealed it off for the.
No. No,
Okay,
they
so any
don't.
kind of experience that we
No,
would like
I'm
to experience.
I'm an archaeologist.
Right. Okay, so
No,
when we go in
that
there?
was a purpose. It was a perfect isosceles triangle. It was meant to be that shape.
okay.
Okay, if you take it any further, that makes it wrong.
Mm.
And also the whole idea was that the resonance goes into the land. It's that shape. It's like that funnel that goes. It takes it into the land. It's gradually. It's the angle of the sun also goes at that angle. They wouldn't have done many ceremonies inside the tomb. Most of them would have been outside, because that would have been the Holy of Holies. So, as far as I definitely would disagree with that.
You were saying one person stands in each of the four.
Yeah, if one
Yeah.
person stands in each of the 4 chambers, and you yourself stand at the end, and they tone, that's quite good. But of course now it's been, it's broken, because the roof's off and they used to drive tractors over it. And but what was also quite interesting is that the people who were interred in it were the same family So it was a priestly caste. 2, they were genetically different to
It's okay.
the normal people.
Well,
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
they had different shaped skulls.
wait, we've got to go back and say that again.
Oh, we do have to.
I'll give you like 2 minutes.
How much we got left on
Card space.
10 to 5, just so you
Oh,
know.
so-
I think
so
I
we're
think
10
our
minutes.
time here is limited, not
You can
on the
talk to
camera.
me another time.
I'll talk to you in my
But actually,
dreams
what
as well.
they were genetically different.
Okay.
Yeah, and the local doctor from the mental hospital took the heads and ground them down and fed them to their his patients
So,
as a remedy.
mm,
But that's what they used to do with mummies, didn't they? They used to
Yeah,
grind
they
mummies
did,
down
yeah,
and feed
yeah.
them to people, so they were into that.
well, that was the Victorians.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Egyptians,
that's right. But certainly, if you look at the west coast of Ireland and various other places, the shape of the skull was considered very important. And also dwarfs were revered, because dwarfs have a large head compared with the rest of their body. And so at the entrance of Avebury and Stonehenge were the remains of dwarfs.
Where did this genetic line come from, if you don't mind my asking?
The interesting thing is, where does that genetic line? Certainly they seem to have been a group of people who came and taught. They had knowledge beyond the indigenous people. Now that's been recorded throughout the world, and the stories of people coming and they were different, genetically different. Now, were they from another culture? Were they from Atlantis? That's the mystery. But certainly there were people who had more information and had a certain amount of wisdom that other people didn't know about, and they certainly came here.
That's it for my question.
Okay.
Does anyone have one final question for?
I just want to say that some of that wasn't usable.
No, it was because we were just talking.
I think you were
weren't
just
we?
talking for the most part.
We were just talking.
Yeah,
about the
okay.
head skulls and.
Yeah. We were
okay.
just talking.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that in post no one takes a knife to Alex because.
Yeah, we won't be talking about skulls. Although
No. It was just us
Right,
talking.
I understand. Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know though that it
Yeah.
was.
Because I didn't do the.
Yeah. Question. Thank you so much. It's
That's
been
all right.
wonderful. Really, really interesting. I mean, I could go on for hours, but I should probably just leave.